What is going on, everyone? We are back with another review of the Boulet brothers' Dragula.
Season 1.
I'm Depraved.
I'm Hellcat.
And together we are...
Hello, Depraved.
Yes, we are.
And...
Quick shout out, by the way, before we get too far into this. Today, as of this recording, so we're recording this on Tuesday, February 27th, is the birthday of my favorite movie of all time.
Dream Warriors? Today?
Yes.
I didn't know that. Okay. Alright. Well, nice shout out.
I only know because somebody pointed out on Twitter. I am not that much of...
Well, our memories aren't that good.
Yeah.
You're definitely that much of a fan. You're just...
I'm just not down to the dates.
Yeah.
I can't tell you the names of the actual actors in most of the movies that I like.
Right. Same. And again, it's a memory issue more than anything. Alright, so we are doing Sea Creatures from the Deep.
Sea Monsters Attack is
Right.
the name of this episode.
Plus the punk premiere of the girls on stage in San Francisco.
Right.
It's kind of a
Dumpster
two-part.
fire. Oh, I'm sorry.
Right, it's a two-part. And we would like to pretend that it's just one part. Sea Creatures. But, I mean...
Okay. I have been confused on this whole thing, mostly from a different standpoint, in that you've watched the last episode, you watched it, I mean, we've both seen already.
But I watched it right after.
But you watched it right after we watched the other one, and I went to sleep. And
accurate.
My memory is confused on how they combined The Last Supper in with the last episode.
Right. They just did it.
Because I feel like there's a lot to show off with 3 looks per person for the last episode.
Yeah, but they didn't...
But they also didn't focus on interviews and things like that. It was
exactly.
kind of... They just jumped into it, I'm sure.
Yeah, no, so it's The Last Supper and then straight to the floor shows, and they sort of do a montage when they put glamour on, and then they do a montage of the 3 girls, and then blah, blah, blah. But that's for next episode. Right. So this episode starts off with their punk performance in San Francisco.
Right.
And then continues with their photo shoot at Land's End in the Bay, which is fucking freezing. I grew up in this area. To be Sea Creatures, which was amazing.
Right.
So, alright.
Now, again, the episode's called Sea Monsters Attack. This is the 5th episode of the first season. I'm actually super stoked that we're coming to the end of this season.
Especially since the last episode, chef's kiss.
Right. To start the things off, talking about the actual intro, we get an argument.
They're packing up to go to San Francisco.
Yeah, they're packing up to go to San Francisco, and Drac kind of gets into... Not Drac. Yeah. No, Swan. Swan gets in an argument on the phone with Israel.
No, Swan's the one that's busy packing the chainsaw and everything. Drac's on the phone with Israel.
Are we sure?
But then they fight with each other because they're running late, and how could Swan have lost an entire can of spray paint, and she has to go to the hardware store right then for some Bondo. And then
she slips on the can of spray paint.
On the stairs.
And
does the horror, the like
takes
70s, 60s, no, like the 60s horror where like she freeze frames and she wants Drac to catch her.
Think the original Psycho.
Yeah.
She's about to...
But she so, and she's like, help me, and Drac just stands there and smiles. But yeah, and then they get up.
My favorite, though, of that whole thing, I mean, that part's funny. But my favorite part of that whole thing is when Drac's on the phone and goes, I don't care if she won't fit in the car, just stuff her in there. Talking about Meatball.
Right. Although I do love Swan packing up the chainsaws and whatnot so that they can go to a punk drag show in San Francisco. I mean, only the necessities. So
the ladies are waiting on their ride and are excited that they're down to the final 4 because they didn't realize 2 people were being eliminated.
They thought it was going to be the final 5.
Right.
Right.
And so when they realized that it was only 4 of them, they were actually super excited. They're like, oh, we're this close to the end. And I'm pretty sure they were both kind of over both the people that were gone.
They were debating who was going to stay and who was going to go. They all wanted Loris to go home, but they all knew that Xochitl was done.
Right.
And so they were kind about Xochitl, but saying she might be the one that goes because she was just defeated, but they all wanted Loris to go home. And it turns out that Miss Loris
was an absolute cunt.
Developed claws for at least the last week or so where they show clips. Well, they show clips of her in the dressing closet with Meatball, and she is actually picking on Meatball pretty fiercely.
Trying to, anyways.
Yeah, Meatball's just kind of like, I am the wrong bitch. But,
right.
But you see it. So, again, we learn that Loris does not know how to read the room. I mean, that's all there is to it. She's immature. She just doesn't know how to read the room. And with her creativity, I really do hope that she matures. I mean, she was young. I hope she matures, and I hope that we see her doing well in the next 5-10 years,
So, we then get to San Francisco, where we get our first look at the Boulets.
Ooh, and this time they came prepared for the sea creatures.
They did.
Not always a thing. Sorry, guys, our machine is busy beating up the clothes as in olden days. It's not particularly hush-hush about it.
Right. So we go from that to also seeing our duo guest judges, the legendary Peaches
Fabulous ladies.
And Heclina.
Yes.
Heclina also just as legendary.
Yeah.
I didn't want that.
That was the title
legendary.
for...
The legendary Peaches, Christ, and Heclina. Now, I will say, prior to watching this show, I am not in the know on drag queens. I'm just not.
Right.
As a matter of fact, I didn't even know who the Boulets were until this show came out. I'm not somebody that goes and watches drag.
I have to say,
I knew who Peaches was.
Yeah.
I'd never heard of Heclina
not
before.
The most educated. I knew Heclina, Peaches.
And of course RuPaul is like the most legendary.
I know RuPaul. I followed it just incidentally, Bitch Puddin' and Trixie before this. And I do have friends, like a couple of my best friends are totally into drag and like grew up going to drag shows and hanging out with drag queens, still do. And they're the ones that actually told me about a lot of these people, and they're like, actually, you would love to watch, like, especially Bitch with her makeup for like Resident Evil and stuff like that.
So, like, for me, guys, I grew up in Midwest America. Stuff like this is shunned, typically, in this part of the country.
Right.
Now, I was never one to care, to be honest.
No. You're a liberal mindset in a conservative state,
right?
But it's not.
But it's also not something that was ever
bandied about here.
It's also not something that was ever in my wheelhouse of interest either until the Boulets put out Dragula, because if there's any drag I'm going to get into,
horror based,
horror, alternative, freaky shit.
Whatever this is,
right?
We love it. Whereas I did grow up in between San Jose and San Francisco and did the whole 9 yards and everything, but I did leave the state when I was 18, so I did not get to legally go into any clubs that would have been having drag shows. There was some, concerts that I snuck into, but
right.
Yeah. Anyway, I did know some of them, but these ladies.
But yeah, these
are some of the originators.
I had heard of Peaches.
Right.
That was.
And I will say this color of aubergine eggplant hair is my favorite, and they are not the only ones. Like the theme seemed to be the glittery black dresses and this beautiful aubergine purple, because this is not the only time that we see it. So
now I don't have pictures of what the ladies were wearing
for the punk show,
for their punk show, because It was filmed with a camera that I'm guessing was not their normal studio camera, and it was real fuzzy and really hard to get a good, decent look at. So, therefore, we're also not going to be judging these looks. These looks specifically...
We did judge these looks. We judged them damn hard. Yes, we did. And I will say this. The reason I was judging those so harshly is because it was for an actual show. Yeah. This was not just walking the catwalk. This was for a crowd, and
Now, this is the first time we got to see extended performances too.
That's also true. Yeah, it wasn't just the montage. It's like it wasn't the full thing, but it was close to.
Now, I do want to go out and say I did personally rank who my favorites and least favorites were in terms of stage show and look overall.
Yeah.
My favorite overall is Frankie Doom.
Okay.
Melissa B. Fierce is my second. Vander Van Odd is my third. And Meatball's a far, far distant fourth. And I hate to say it like that, but Meatball's performance was so awkward.
Yeah, it was...
awkward.
It was not well thought out, because the person she pulled on stage, just there was nothing there.
I loved Meatball's look. Mostly. There were some things about it I didn't like. But in terms of the whole package...
The small fish, the person on stage, I did not like the clear skirt. Like, I did like everything from waist up, because, again, guys, we're talking punk look. And I thought that the clear skirt reminded me much more of the basic bitch pink.
Now, Vander Van Odd is my third, because she had a peacock prop that failed so hard it literally almost dragged her down.
Yeah, okay, so
she had one
ranking,
of my favorite looks as a whole.
My ranking, I'll just give it, number 1 was Vander, number 2 was Melissa, number 3 was Frankie, number 4 was Meatball. Meatball for the same reasons as you. It was not just that the look wasn't the best out of them, it was that her performance, I felt, was kind of the worst. Vander, I think the look was 100% there. 100%. Yes, she had a tail feather problem.
It wasn't just a problem, it almost knocked her off the stage. Like, she almost went crowd surfing.
But I feel like...
As a matter of fact, the only person that didn't struggle on stage was Melissa. And that's why she's my second.
And she got my second, because her punk look was actually, it was there. She looked like she had choreographed her routine, even if she added a shit ton of death drops.
I also have to disagree with Heclina on that, though. I didn't mind the death drops, and I felt they actually fit the performance she was going for.
Yes, but I will say she needed to cut them in half. I'm not saying she needed to, like, pull them out of there. I'm just saying, like, you cannot live off death drops alone.
Right. And I feel like Frankie, the reason why I had her as my first, she was the most balanced overall. I liked her look. She didn't have a bad performance.
That's also true. I mean, I really liked the werewolf kind of look, but again...
Now, I do agree with the Boulets. She didn't do enough to put herself out there in terms of look. It did come off as kind of basic. It just didn't come off as terrible for me.
I felt like she did a lot of walking back and forth on stage. She didn't really play into the werewolf character, and I think that's partially because of the kind of music that was playing, that it was so on and so forth. But I also felt like something that has suffered, I want to say, for a lot of people this entire season, is me feeling like from the waist down, they just didn't do much.
Right.
And I felt like Vander and Melissa had a complete outfit put together. So anyway, moving on from that, because we didn't have pictures, that's not actually... I mean, like, I did somewhat factor it in at the end, but not heavily.
Alright, so now to go on with the actual looks of the night. Melissa B. the oceanic looks. First and foremost, the Boulets with their tentacle.
Their second oceanic look of the night.
Yes. Actually, I still like the first one a bit more, though. I was not a big fan of this one.
I don't mind this one, but it reminds me more of, like, the pheasant feathers that you see at the races or whatever.
It's the almost angelic-like wings for me.
Oh, the shoulder pads, like the heavy-duty shoulder pad. I mean, like, I thought they looked as fierce as always. I did like the look prior to this better, especially for the sea creature part. But the funny thing for me is that the Boulets know the bay. They took the pictures, fabulous pictures, on the craggy shoreline.
But did not get in the water.
But did not get into
better.
that frigid water. Right,
Yep.
right.
All right, so starting off, we've got Melissa B. Fierce with her oceanic look.
Right.
I'm not exactly sure what it was supposed to be honest.
I took it as some sort of like...
they're all sea creatures.
Yeah, I mean, like, I felt like she had some, like, lionfish inspiration and some just, like, creature from the Black Lagoon with some sparkles,
Right. We then had Meatball.
Popping out.
All of them actually did really well.
They actually did.
All of them killed this.
And I will say, for how battered they got by this frigid water, everything stayed in place. Like, we really did not see anything
Meatball's
come
probably
apart.
The closest that had a little bit of head wiggle for her top part.
But seriously...
But even still, like, you're talking about fighting waves.
Yeah, that we're trying to drag them down. We're bashing the backs of their heads. It was windy, so seriously, they did really well.
They did. Vander Van Odd with an almost...
Anemone, kind of.
Well, for me, it almost came off as... And again, I'm pretty sure... I don't know if this was before, during, or after the video game The Last of Us came out, but it almost feels like, to me, almost very Last of Us zombie-like, because it had the almost mushroom-like thing, pores, like, on the head, and like it was, like, taking over the body.
I felt like it was a little bit more floral, which is why I went with, like, sea anemone-esque.
Anemone.
And I think... Oh, I don't know when the video game The Last of Us came out. I was going to say the show, obviously. Yes. So we have the very pretty one.
Frankie Von Doom.
With the Triton, sort of like...
I said Von Doom because, again, I'm a Marvel fan. I'm sorry, it's just Frankie Doom.
Right. But yes, this one's got Triton, this much more octopal look.
Frankie Doom.
Octopi look, I don't know.
With a monster look.
Right.
Alright, so then after all this is said and done, they all get a chance to say their goodbyes. Just in
they're
case.
told to say goodbye now because...
One of them was going to be
One of them, yeah. Yeah. And they weren't told.
And they were all very respectful of each other.
They were so happy.
Everyone was like, whoever gets eliminated...
Win. Yeah.
Like, whoever's left, go out there and kill it. Like, and everyone pretty much agreed. There was no cattiness. There was no, I deserve to be here and you didn't type shit.
No, they were all like, everyone deserves this at this point.
But I feel like, if I'm being honest, this has been a consistent feel for most of the season. There have been one or two people that are on the outliers of that. But for the most part, they've all been really supportive of each other.
Well, and Vander actually says that at the end. He she's like... I was really afraid that when I got here, like, this was going to be a cat fest and this, that, and the other. And I've actually had, she intersperses fucking a lot in there, which I thought was great because she's so quiet. To learn that she has such a dirty vocabulary is amazing. But yeah, she was impressed with how much fun she had. And they all agreed on that.
And then the Boulets kill off Meatball with an axe in one of the funniest deaths so far, because
chicken
on Meatball's trip to her death, she passes by a chicken coop, and she's like, she picks she
immediately
she looks at the chickens and is talking about eating the chickens.
My favorite.
And in quotes, one of the chickens is supposed to say, "Not tonight."
Yeah.
Which is so appropriate because it's Meatball that was doing the "not tonight" thing.
Right.
Which is fantastic. I love that the
Boulet brothers
got in on it. That in there. Kept up with the joke. Yep. And then, of course, when they're about to chop Meatball's head, she starts screaming about something, and then they point at her.
Right.
And she shuts up, and then they axe her head off. I'm sure.
She was literally axed. Yeah. But But that is the ending scene where Meatball is wearing that gorgeous aubergine color, both hair and lips. And I must say, she needs to wear it more because absolutely her color, she looked fabulous for her. I mean, everybody wants to look fantastic when they die, right?
Right.
Yes. So, anyway.
All right, so moving on. That actually wraps up the actual episode. As we get less people, it gets less time that it takes to get through everything.
But there was also less excess talk because this was a two-parter, so there was more performance. And then, of course, we had the judges. Well, we had constructive criticism judgment twice. So, yeah.
I am curious if we're going to have the exact same order for our top 4.
I doubt it, but we'll see.
Let's find out. All right, so.
All right.
Starting with you, baby. What's your number 4?
My number 4 was Meatball.
Hey, guess what?
I'm sorry, girlfriend.
Mine was 2. Now. Oh, too far.
Yeah. A little too far. Now this is both.
No.
This is for both looks for me. But this sea creature, I thought it was good. It was well done, and the pictures were amazing. But I felt like other 3 did more.
I just felt like it was the weakest of the sea creature looks. It didn't look as monstrous as the others.
I think the problem is that she didn't have as much in terms of like attachments, floaty bits, what you think of like seaweed, algae, tentacles, anything like that. So it was a very svelte look, but on the other hand, like it just wasn't. Yeah, it wasn't like monstrous or So underwhelmed. But, yeah.
All right. My number 3 is Melissa B. Fierce.
Mine too. That was the one that I was actually wondering. Okay.
Again, slightly better than Meatballs. I just don't think it's much better than Meatballs because I feel like Melissa's struggles again from just not feeling as unique, almost as if it's something that I don't know. It just didn't stand out to me.
Yeah, I don't know if it's the complete unit in the grass green color, or if it's the fact that with the mouthpiece, I felt like it was almost more crocodilian than sea creature, because like with the pants and everything, it almost looks scale-like, so it could be crocodilian, alligator, or something like that. But it just, imagination was basically,
What's your number 2?
Frankie.
All right.
And Frankie, because this is what I expected someone to pop up with. I think they did an amazing job with the tentacles and, the Triton and the coloring. And, it was very intricate. And obviously a lot of work was put into it. And it didn't just, look like a whole bunch of, socks stuffed down nylons for the tentacles. And, again, no loss of anything major during the photo shoot, just looked amazing, but this is what I expected from somebody.
All right. My number 2 is Vander. Here's my problem. I'm going to go ahead and obviously we know who my number 1 is.
Right.
I can honestly say they're pretty much interchangeable for me.
Right.
I think what puts Frankie ahead for me is I can definitely see what you were saying as far as it's what you expected, and I can almost agree, but I feel like it was just done so well in a way that I wasn't expecting.
I could give them that. Yeah.
And they're the only ones that really brought out a full-on prop. And for those of you that don't know, when I mean like a full-on prop, like she had a trident.
Trident, yeah.
I'm one of my favorite gods of all time is Poseidon.
Right.
He's an absolute dick. I don't like him as an actual
right.
character
Which is funny because mythologically speaking, one of my favorite anything is Medusa.
Right.
And they just do not go well together. Let's just say that.
But when I was younger, I got introduced to Poseidon as a character, and obviously as a kid you don't get into the actual like real mythos stories. You just get the good side of everything.
Right.
And it
not
was just
that he'll shag anything he possibly can stick his dick into.
But it was very much like King of the Sea,
right?
Or the God of the Sea, I guess technically. Being able to swim and fight underwater seemed really cool to me. He had the trident, which I thought was one of the coolest looking weapons I'd ever seen in my life.
That's fair.
And he had like the long hair, and I mean, he actually looked like Zeus, but with fins.
Yeah, they're brothers.
I know.
Okay.
But.
Right.
So her having the trident was really cool. I also love the like I said, it's very like Ursula inspired, and I just thought she really pulled it off.
I am glad that Frankie didn't go with the purple and black, because that would have been 100% what.
And then for Vander, like she killed it. It's like I said, it very much reminds me of.
Well.
The Last of Us.
Right, and I think that's what made this like. So she's got the fish skeleton stuck to her, and so it's like she's definitely one of the deadly sea anemones. And I thought it was more difficult in terms of the photo shoot for her, because she stuck with the waving in the water kind of movements. Whereas everybody else was able to be just like 100% aggressive, like I'm coming out of the water, I'm coming to get you, because they were all mobile monsters. But she kept her movements just very branch-like, anemone-like, like you need to come to me kind of thing, which is also why she was so colorful and floral looking and everything, So I thought it was a very unique take on this, but it was very clear that she was deadly. So it fit the scope. Plus, I think she took number one because, again, I agree with you that they're somewhat interchangeable, but since she got top points for me from the punk show, she won out.
Right.
And her look from the punk show, if that malfunction hadn't happened, which was probably because of the weight of the garments that she had attached to it, but if it hadn't malfunctioned, I mean...
Oh, she'd have been my number one.
It's deadly look. Like the one-sided hairdo with the sparkles on the skull and, like, deadly
the huge,
look.
like, Flava Flav pentagram necklace.
Loved the look. I mean, the
and
skirt.
I even loved the peacocked images.
Yeah, everything that was on
fine.
it. The fact that it was peacocked, it was just
she
gorgeous.
opened it ate her. She almost fell off the stage, and then she could not get it under control.
And then it rocked her all the way back. Yeah, but the skirt that she came out with that covered it was also gorgeous. It was still a fierce look when she dropped the peacock skirt and was, strutting around in her glittery leotard, basically.
With a knife.
Looked amazing. So Vander definitely took the steal for this week, just solidly for me. Yeah. Anyway.
And here's the thing. Just like with what the Boulet said, at this point in the competition, everything is nitpicky.
Yeah.
Because they all four killed it. They all looked good.
They all four are amazing queens. So yeah, this is just. How does one win out by little tiny? And
we've kind of been, me more so than her, probably harsh on some of the picks that the Boulets have done as far as eliminations and things like that. But for the most part, we've agreed with them
Yeah.
In terms of what was last, like Pinche going first, Ursula going second. I still don't agree with Foxy going third.
All right, Foxy's the one that well, and of course, and then once you say Foxy, like, you end up rearranging all of them. But I would have sent home Loris at that point.
And then you don't know where you're going to go with that, because you don't know what Foxy would have done.
Yeah, exactly. So,
but
I do agree that this time
the top three are the top three.
The top three are the top three, and Meatball did not miss out by much.
And what's funny for me, I always forget. So this is the third time we've watched through this season. So we started with season.
At least.
We started with season 4.
Okay.
And then we watched Titans, I think, which was their one-off. Or no, not Titans.
No, Resurrection.
Resurrection. And then we watched Titans.
Okay.
And then we went back and started and watched 1 through 3.
Okay.
And then I think we actually started back over again and watched the entire season.
Right.
Series.
Okay.
5 came out, we watched 5, and now we're going through it again to do this show. Right? And so this is the third time we've actually watched this specific season. And I always forget, for some reason, that Frankie makes it into the top 3. I don't know why. Obviously, we know who wins it all.
Right.
But I always forget that Frankie's the one that makes it into the top 3 because, for whatever reason, I always think none of the bigger competitors made it. And size-wise, I'm not talking about skill-wise. I always forget that, because it almost feels like the bigger competitors are almost always eliminated super quick in the competition.
Or, yeah, I mean, like...
And it's not by design.
By the halfway point.
It's not by design. It just happens to be how it happens.
A lot of times it happens with, like, the elimination challenge or
right.
Just something.
But I always forget that it's Frankie that makes it. And that always makes me happy, though. It's not like a bad thing. I'm not like, oh, man, Frankie made it. I'm like, oh, hey, Frankie's one of my favorites. I'm glad they made it.
That's the great thing about our memory, guys, is, occasionally you get excited all over again.
I can tell you who wins every single season. I know the winners.
Right.
I can just never remember the exact contestants every time.
I remember...
In the top.
Only... Yeah, I remember that Vander went... yeah. I remember... But Frankie, I don't remember each time. And I think it's because Melissa blows me away in the next episode.
I remember bits and pieces. Again, when I say I don't always remember the top 3... I even forget Melissa makes the top 3 sometimes when I'm thinking about it because I'm like, I know she makes it up there.
See, and
I think it's because I confused that season
with the one that
Titans.
She goes home. Yeah.
So
by choice.
The people that end up in multiple seasons really start to fuck with my memory because everything runs together for me for some reason.
I remember that she makes it, and like I said, it's because the next episode absolutely blows me away. So. Anyway, I watched it again because...
And she'll end up watching it again because we'll watch it. We watch it together. We watch the next episode that we're going to be talking about every Monday.
Yeah. So, but
we'll watch it again
I
next
couldn't
Monday.
wait a week after watching this one. Just autoplay and everything. So anyway.
I love, and we'll talk more about it when we get there. I love how surprised Vander is to catch the bucket of blood on her forehead that everyone else from that moment on expects, yeah. I think they even got called out for not having it done one season. Being the first, it was a huge surprise. It was great. I kind of wish I had gone to prom just for that at this point. But no, I'm super excited to see the last episode because I don't even remember all the looks. Now we're going to be doing the ranking on the last episode a little different. It's not going to look like this in terms of having everyone that's been eliminated on. It's just going to be the top 3. It's going to be it's still going to be the 9 spots. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6,
I meant
7, 8,
top
9.
3 girls.
Right. But it's going to be their individual looks that we'll be ranking amongst each other. Yeah. Because each will have a look for the 3 major tenets of Dragula. Anyway, join us next week. For most of the seasons, except for like this one time that they didn't do it. And it was so disappointing. Yeah, it really was. I actually look forward to the 3 different looks. It was the combo one, wasn't it? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Even Titans just ran off of everybody just doing 3 looks, and
Yeah, I know. 3
not
looks is
Titans,
fantastic.
Resurrection. That's what I meant to say.
Resurrection. Yeah, it was fantastic. Anyway, we'll get there, guys. We'll get there.
So with that being said, we love you guys. We'll see you next time. Peace.
Next week.